Thanks for joining again. It's good to see you. So last week we were talking about mental health and artistic expression or creative expression. And we were going through some various ways that mental health plays into creative expression. And for me, in my personal experience, it has played into everything. And so I would like to continue this into a second part of mental health and artistic or creative expression. So really I just want to start with the way that I actually got into this. I got into photography during a time when I was nearly homeless. If it wasn't for some dear friends of mine who were willing to take me in, I am not sure I would have had a place to live. So thanks to their generosity, and you know who you are, once again, I feel like I am only here today because of the generosity of others who have found me in some hard places and have been willing to reach out and value me and see me as something worth more than I can see myself. So it's funny. I was actually staying in my friend's basement, and this was the person who was really bringing me off the streets, and he said, he's an Indian, so forgive my Indian accent. He said, "Ryan, I don't understand why you're such a smart guy, but you don't have a job." And again, forgive my Indian accent, but he just couldn't understand why I would have so many God-given gifts and couldn't turn that into something where people wanted to just throw money at me, essentially. And I think in a large part it has to do with just my struggle with who I am, and who I am is more than somebody who just makes money. And so I think this is really where artistic expression started coming out, because I've noticed that the more I focused on money, or staying out of a desperate situation such as being homeless, the more unhealthy I became. And really the more I was spiraling down this path that I didn't want to head down, and ultimately was worsening my depression and general anxiety disorder, and really made everything far worse. So really the path to creative expression, I think in a lot of ways starts with pain. It's coming to an end of ourselves and saying, you know what, there must be something bigger and greater in life than just doing the normal. So I read a very interesting quote today, or I think I actually saw it on Netflix. I'm going to pull out my journal real quick so I can actually repeat it. Anyway, what they said was, maybe their depression or empty feeling inside of them has something to do with a lack of creative sparks in their life. And I found that just to be such a interesting, compelling thing, that was talking about creative power. Like, there's actually something missing within us as human beings when we are not taking full hold of our creative power. And I've experienced this very personally in my life, but I think everyone else does as well. When you just focus on the very surface level things, whether it be money, or it could be even really wonderful things like family or the outdoors, or TV shows or friends or church, or Maybe it's the Bible even. I say that even though I am a practicing Christian. I'm Torah observant, but I'm a practicing Christian. That I'm constantly in the Bible. But even the Bible itself, concentrated on so much, misses out on this creative power that God designed us to do, that He made from the time of Adam and Eve being in the garden. He was having them cultivate and create. And so I think this harnessing creative power is just essential to who we are. So I wanted to just dive a little bit more into that and dive into my personal story, which photography started out in a low place, but also my return back into photography and videography started out with me coming out of a mental health recovery center. And coming out of that mental health recovery center really just reinvigorated that passion that I just had to dive back into my creative side. There was a power, that there was a real energy behind that I couldn't just leave be. That it brought out everything in me that it was to be a man, to be a spiritual being, to be a human being. It wasn't enough to just go through the daily motions. So I was actually really, really thankful for having spent that time in a mental health recovery center. Because without that, I'm not sure I would have really rediscovered how important it was for me to be expressing myself artistically, and really put out my passion and God-given gifts in that way. So I really just wanted to get into that aspect of just how our mental health and creativity just go hand in hand. And I think they're really, really hard to separate. And maybe some of us who are struggling with depression and struggling with anxiety or trauma or complex PTSD or bipolar could really benefit from being involved in the creative process. And again, as I said on my previous video, that this is not my cure all for everything. Nonetheless, I think there's a huge amount of just energy behind it that's just waiting to be released. And mental health, it can seem like depression is actually sort of a lack of energy, but really the more I've found behind it is more that there's a lot of energy behind it. There might be anger, frustration, grief. There might be sadness has an energy behind it. And when you really dive into these things and begin to express it through writing or through photography, through videography, like sharing this vlog right here with you, you can really begin to discover what it is to be human and to have this full range of emotions. And it's unfortunate that as an American, it's become unacceptable to express ourselves emotionally, because it's also so important. Or that certain emotions are better than others, but they all have their place. Anger has its place. Sadness has its place. Some things we gotta get angry about because there's injustice. Some things we need to be sad about because something bad really did happen. And as we're able to express those things, we can also experience healing in those things and be able to actually be a full human being. So really, as I want to wrap up today, I'll kind of keep this shorter than last time. Again, I want to have a helpful tip to the end of this, and I think one of the things that I find most helpful for me is allowing myself to feel. This is a really big thing for me. I've gone through so many issues of kind of cocooning up when I get scared or when I get lonely or when I feel like I'm in distress, and it's very important for me to actually express how I am feeling, and so there's no bad emotions or good emotions, but there's emotions that are built around being human and need to be respected by those around me. And if those around me can't respect it, then maybe there's a problem with the relationship that needs resolved and not a problem with my emotions. Kind of see the difference there. So this can be really hard. Again, this is like one of those, be super patient with yourself. Maybe at first you just need to write it down or pray it. But I would just encourage you to actually give yourself some time in the day to actually feel what you're feeling. It is vitally important for your mental health that you actually feel, and that you bring to completion those feelings. When we begin a feeling, it'll continue to stay there until we bring it into some sort of completion. So living in a sort of denial actually means we just have more stuff build up and build up and build up and build up until there's a release of anger, a release of sadness, a release of, a big release that just feels completely uncontrollable, and it came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're yelling about something that seems tiny, but really there was years of jam-packed emotion into it. So word of warning, there might be, if you've been sort of have a log jam of stuff, you might feel a lot at first, and it might be very, very painful. So I really recommend going through this with a therapist or counselor or somebody who's safe enough, especially if you haven't been doing this. If you have been more of a regular practice of doing this, I would just really encourage you to continue going through feeling, even if we don't like what we feel at first, to stop prejudging our feelings and just allow them to be for what they are, and not assume that it means anything terrible and awful, but that our emotions are trying to direct us in a good, healthy direction. So I'm trying to encourage us to have a positive relationship with our emotions and see them as helpful tools for being able to direct our life in the way that God would want to bring us, and that we truly want to bring ourselves, so that we're happier and healthier human beings. So thank you guys for joining me again on this second week of this. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope that you can join the conversation. I had a couple comments come from viewers last time, and I've really enjoyed chatting back and forth about different stuff with mental health and creativity. So please keep those coming. I enjoy them. I am happy to talk about my experience. I hope you can see from this, and I hope you'll at least feel free to talk about your experience with me. So I'll see you. Bye.